Hey Cody there, how's it going, man? Prince of Records, or what's up as you say. Hope you're doing well. And first of all, just wanted to congratulate you on your anniversary, your first anniversary, first year in the VC, and your contest, man. Ah, wow. I don't know what to say there. I didn't know you had a contest, and maybe I'm still last couple of months with my mom and all. I'm still just sort of sleepwalking through life. So maybe I saw the video. I don't remember if I did or not, but I got up this morning and I saw your your drawing for your contest, and I thought, wow, I don't see what this contest was. I didn't know about this, and wanted to see what the question was and see who won. And so I saw that participation was not stellar, unfortunately, and I can only speak for myself, but if I would have seen this or been aware of it, I would have made an entry because I think it's a good contest, and I hope you keep making videos in the VC and don't get too uh, dejected there or anything. This kind of sucks, man. I don't know what to say other than I'm sorry, but so. Uh, Prince Records had this contest and it's pretty straightforward. Just the question was, what is the most meaningful record in your collection? Which is not really, might have to think about that some, but it's not a tough question or anything. Like I said, I would have made an entry. I just either saw it and I was been really out of it the last couple of months, like I said, and maybe I saw it and just or meant to watch it later, but I think I didn't, and just today was first I heard of it. So without the contest is over and the winner's already been declared. I'm not interested in a prize or anything, but if it's okay with you, I'd like to go ahead and make an entry. And so, yeah, just get to that. The question, what is the most meaningful record in your collection? And I guess you could look at that a couple of ways. You sort of reference that. I guess you could say the record that's worth the most collectible or worth the most money if you were to sell your collection. That would, in my collection, I have a butcher cover. I didn't get it out, but I've shown it on here before. And so I guess that would be from that perspective. Another thing is I sold a bunch of my records on eBay back in the 90s and my Beatles stuff, and I wish I would not have done that now, but past is the past. I used to have this picture sleeve, which was the Love Comes to Everyone in Soft Touch picture sleeve from the George Harrison album from 1978. And I got it at the Beatle Fest in 1981 in Chicago. And it was a 45 that was going to be released. I think they released Blow Away as a 45 and maybe Faster. I think they released two 45s from that album. This was going to be the third 45 released from the album. But I don't think the album sold too well, and so they ended up never releasing the 45. The picture sleeves were printed up and then I guess destroyed or something, but some of them got out. I don't know that they ever actually made a 45. I've never seen one or heard of one, but some of the picture sleeves got out. I got the picture sleeve at Beatlefest in Chicago, like I said, for the whopping ridiculous price of $100 in 1981. This was supposed to have come out in early 79. And when eBay came along and I sold a bunch of stuff, I saw in a price guide that those things had increased in value to a crazy price by that time, and I sold it on eBay for, I'll go ahead and say I sold it for about 860 bucks, that picture sleeve, and which was a good chunk of change for a piece of paper, but I still almost from the second I sold it regretted it since then. This is a price guide that came out well, 207, so I guess it's been out a while. But and you know how dependable price guides are. They're a good reference point, but they're not etched in stone as far as whether something will actually bring that price or not. It's just the market. But that's what that's supposed to be worth nowadays. And that's not 500, that's 5,000. So I had one of those once and I sold it, and not that I buy this stuff for money so much, but it does kind of wasn't too happy reading that when I saw that. But I'm not really. Yeah, I buy music and albums because I love music, and so it's more about that than it is about how much they're worth or how rare or valuable. There is an aspect of I do like to get things that are limited edition and the physical neat bells and whistles and rare records and all that, but it all comes down in the end to great music or something. So I'm going to go with the album that means the most to me in my collection from another standpoint. Another way you could go is your favorite album, you know, which I'm not going to go either, which I've said several times on here. The Beatles' second album would be my favorite album. Kinks of the Village Green Preservation Society would be my second favorite album. I'm not going to go with those either. But I am going with the Beatles album. No big surprise there. You've all seen and heard of this album, of course. The reason I'm going with this, so it's 1973. I'm 9 years old. I've told this story, but I'll tell it again. I'll be 10 in September, but this is, I'm still 9 years old. I remember that. And it's raining outside, and some guy, a buddy of mine from down the street, is over playing at the house. We're hanging out watching cartoons or whatever inside the house because it's raining. Still got the big old console stereo that was my parents' in the living room, and some of my brother's albums are stacked up against the stereo there, and you know, they've been there forever. I just didn't pay much attention to them one way or the other. So my buddy says, you know, hey, can I play some records? I don't care, you know. So he plays Three Dog Night album and Led Zeppelin 2, or not all the way through, but he plays some songs, one and something else off the Three Dog Night album, and he plays a Whole Lot of Love off Led Zeppelin, and that stuff's okay, you know. And I'd heard those songs, but then I start flipping through records, and this isn't the actual copy from back then. This is the one I bought later, but run across this, and this is one that I was aware of the Beatles. I'd heard them, you know. They were just there though, and saw this record, and I recognized it from having seen it around the house. My brother probably bought this new in '67 when it came out. It's just like I said, it's like one of those, if there's a picture that's hanging up on the wall in your house that's been there since you were a little kid or your parents bought before you were born. And then someday someone's over at the house and says, hey, that's a cool picture. And you go, oh, yeah, yeah. And then you look at it and you go, hey, you know, that is a really cool picture. I never just walked by it all the time and knew it was there, but just never took the time to. So I'm flipping through records and I see this, and I remember this being around the house for since I was little. You know, I would have been like 3 or 4, whatever, when this came out. And I think, you know, and I put that on first song. And like I said, I was aware of the Beatles. I remember a couple of girls lived down the street singing "Hey Jude" when it came out when I was little. I remember Strawberry Fields, hearing that on the radio when I was little when that came out, and it made me feel kind of strange or weird in a good way, just a dream state type thing. I don't know, because I mean, again, I was like 3 or 4, and in first grade, I remember a friend of mine. His name, I lost track of him years ago. His name was Bob Roberts, so Robert Roberts, kind of funny. He was into the Beatles because he had older brothers and sisters like I did, and I didn't like them or dislike them. I was semi-aware of them and just like, oh yeah. And I remember him talking about the White Album, the whole Paul is dead rumor stuff, and this weird song called Revolution Number 9. Thought all that was really cool because I was always into Halloween and horror movies and stuff like that. So I thought that was cool, but I didn't run out and buy Beatles records or look up my brother's Beatles records because this is probably like a year or two later. I'm talking first grade versus third grade. So I put this on, and the first song is Magical Mystery Tour, the title track, of course, and I'd heard it before, I think, or was vaguely aware of having heard it before, but I'd never really heard it, paid attention to it. And it's playing, and I'm just like, just, it's love at first sight, love at first hear, and I guess not first hear, love at first hear that I actually really paid attention, and I'm just gone. And I just became a Beatle nut that second. My buddy, who also has since moved away a long time ago, back when we were about fifth grade or so. I don't even remember the guy's name now. He wasn't too impressed with the Beatles, or I guess he liked them all right, but he wanted to hear more Three Dog Night. They're okay, I guess. So he played a song, and I wanted to hear more of this because I'd only played the first song, and he took it off and put Three Dog Night back on. So I said, yeah, we're about to eat, so I guess you got to go on home. And so he ran home. This goes right back on the radio, back on the record player, and I play the title Magical Mystery Tour. I don't know, 4 or 5 times, and then it hits me that hey, maybe some of the other stuff on here is great. So I play side one. Good God in heaven, man, this is, and I'm just goner. Get to side two, and it's just that's all she wrote. So, and I looked through my brother's records, and I have two brothers, so I don't know who belonged to who. And I remember, like I said, I remember seeing this. I remember seeing Sergeant Pepper around when I was 3 or 4 with them getting it, and hearing Beatles and Stones and other stuff. But it was just background noise, Music wise, I like The Doors. Light My Fire was the first song that I really kind of tuned into, other than like kid songs or Christmas songs. But I didn't go out and start buying Doors albums because I was 3 or 4 when it came out. Like I said, I first, second grade, I briefly was into the Osmonds and the Partridge Family and Jackson 5 because they all had TV shows on at that time. Yeah, 2 of them had cartoons in the Partridge Family TV show. So my mom or my grandmom or someone got me a Partridge Family album for, they just bought it or his birthday or something. And I kind of thought that was cool for about 5 minutes, and it didn't take me too long to figure out that this is pretty lame. So, and I didn't jump to anything, and this was be a few months later when I put this on, and it just exploded my head, like I said. So I went through my brother's records, and I found this Sergeant Pepper, Hard Day's Night, Abbey Road, Rubber Soul, and Revolver, and just devoured them over the next few days and weeks and months and decades, really. But so, and it's kind of serendipity because the way these things happen, because back then you didn't have, Wikipedia and YouTube and internets, and you go to the bookstore and they didn't have a bazillion books on the Beatles and or musicians and rock bands like they do now. So information was hard to come by. Kind of, you had to found a couple of magazines that came out 73, 74 on the Beatles, just like one-shot issues that I picked up. I still have those, actually. And Time found some books. And you didn't have money because, like I said, I was 9. So things were hard to find. But say serendipity because not too long after I discovered this, they played Help, the movie on TV, on the afternoon movie, within probably like a couple of weeks to a month. Saw that, said, man, the Beatles on TV. Remember watching that. My brothers didn't have the Help album, or if they did, they had lost it or gotten rid of it between whenever I ran across this stuff. So all these songs were, I never heard, and it's brand new. And I'm watching the Help movie on TV, and at that point, I don't really even know who's who. I'm like, okay, is that Paul or is that George? I'm not, I don't know them yet. And and that was great. Ticket to Ride, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, and You're Gonna Lose That Girl, and then Help. Heard that. Opens the movie. It's my favorite song from that point. It still is. So that, and then right about that time, I knew there were some other Beatles albums out. I went to the store, to the mall, and that's when they had record stores, and that's when the department stores had sold records. So I look through and I see all these other Beatles albums, and at that point I see stuff like Something New in the Beatles' second album, and Beatles 65 and stuff. I don't know British from American albums or anything. I think those are all just new, not new because they'd been out, but I thought those were all albums and new songs that the Beatles actually went in the studio to record the Something New album and stuff. So I don't have money to buy that, but there's a place called Treasure City back in the day. Treasure City was like a dump. Made Kmart look like Neiman Marcus by comparison, but and they were in a less than desirable area of town also. But so they would advertise in the paper, and I saw Let It Be and Introducing the Beatles were for sale at Treasure City for $1.99 each. So I begged and pleaded, and my mom and dad took me out there and bought those two for me. Uh, Also, right around that time, or not too soon after, not too far after I found this, was the Red and Blue albums came out. I mean, those were double albums, which were, 10 or $12, a huge price back in '73 when you're 9, 10 years old. I couldn't afford that. So it hit me this idea that, it's not Christmas, it's not my birthday, but hey, my brother's birthday's coming up. So I tell my mom, hey, they like the Beatles and these just came out. These are greatest hits. That'd be a good birthday present. And she goes, yeah, that's not a bad idea. So she buys both of them, wraps them up. And then at my brother's birthday thing, and by that point they're in college and out of the house, he opens them. He goes, oh, yeah, that's nice. That's cool. And I said, hey, I've been getting into them. Can I borrow those and listen to them? And he's like, well, yeah, sure, I guess. So I borrowed them, and I'm still borrowing them. 40 some years later, I guess I should return them someday. But so I mean, all that stuff happens right about the time I get into the Beatles. But anyway, um, and this is what led to that Beatle love, and then solo Beatles, and then Rolling Stones and Beach Boys, and because they had other records, they had a bunch of 45s, they had some Beach Boys records, some Rolling Stones records, and in time I got into those, and later on other stuff, the Clash and the Jam and the Ramones years later, and well, not years later, but I mean 73, I guess 78, 79, stuff like that, 80s music. And but this is where it all started for me, because even though there were songs that I liked before that and was aware of things on the radio and all, this was the day that I just randomly picked this up because I'd seen it around the house and put it on the record player and actually sat there and paid attention and just changed everything for me and sent me down this crazy record collecting path. So I would say this has got to be the most notable or important or substantial record in my collection. So there you go, Cody. I hope it's okay that I make an entry after the fact, and I would encourage anyone else who's watching this to take the challenge and make an entry even though the contest is over. Congratulations again on your first year in the VC, and we'll be seeing you.